Yeah. And making his way to the ring, the #1 professional wrestling announcer in the world, Charlie Wrestling Voice 1 Eccles.
I never get introductions. This is awesome. You want me to give you each one here?
There is it.
From Backlash 605, the one and only Casey Kelderman. And from Back Dude Big Flip, #2 in your programs, #1 in your hearts, Andy, the Fat Dude Heller!
Best intros ever.
Welcome everyone to Burritos and Bodyslams, featuring Casey Kelderman, Andy the Fat Dude Heller, and myself, Charlie Eccles. We have no social media presence because this is something we do for fun, and social media is not something you do for fun. You can follow us all on our separate social medias going forward. Today on the docket, this is episode 3, which I was very proud of this title. This is titled The Road to Burrito Mania.
Whoa!
Yeah,
Yes.
I like it.
Yes.
Much better than my shitty title that I put for the YouTube.
Oh, I loved the chimichangas and choke slam last month. All right, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to follow us on YouTube. We are going to be bringing this to you about once a month. Make sure to follow Fat Dude Digs Flicks on wherever you get your podcasts, where you can check out Andy reviewing all sorts of movies and having these wonderful conversations with friends and the alike. Along with that, making sure to listen to every episode of the Criterion Break with Andy and Blake. Blake Ginnathan getting an ominous introduction to burritos.
Not even 5 minutes into the episode, and Blake gets mentioned.
I know, right? And make sure to go to your podcast app and follow Backlot 605 again for your movie reviews and a little bit of a different taste as far as how you like each of your movie podcasts. I listen to both shows and I love them. I recently got to Andy. I got to tell you, I loved the episode that you did with your buddy Robbie.
Thank you so much.
So much. I was genuinely laughing out loud. I had so much fun listening to that. So
it was it's weird to say because it was something that I didn't know that I needed, but doing that episode really was like it just brought back so many great memories, and it was just fun with kind of talking with him after I haven't had a conversation with him really other than through typing for years. And it was just like everything just came right back. It was like our friendship has never gone in its own direction. So it was awesome. I actually have another one lined up with another friend from high school next month that that was kind of that one will be interesting too. So, awesome, so it'll be fun. But yeah, it was a really good episode to record, and I was super excited leading up to it. And after it was recorded, I was like, "This was great. This is what I wanted." So, yeah,
that's awesome. And you could tell that when you were listening to it in your voice. I mean, it was almost like a relief factor.
Sure.
Like you could actually hear yourself just going, oh, "That's Robbie."
Yeah,
hey.
yeah.
Like you had just kind of hit your comfort zone, and
right.
It was good. So, and there was a little bit of wrestling talk in there, which there always seems to be whenever you do yours. And then you guys at Backlot are actually coming off of Monty Python month, correct? And what do you guys got lined up for the month of February? Black History Month. Did I read that right?
Yes, Spike Lee month. Yeah, this is a brand new venture for me and Brian over there. I think both of us, he had seen Da 5 Bloods and one other Spike movie. I had only ever seen Da 5 Bloods, so these are all fresh movies for all of us this entire month. That's really interesting. I mean, the last episode we had Blake on with his friend Andre, and I mean, we talked for a good hour and a half on Do the Right Thing and just what the whole movie meant. And very, very different conversation than an entire month of Monty Python chicanery.
Right. Well, you were so excited about Monty Python.
Oh, I love Monty Python. I could do another series next year on Monty Python and just do the movies again.
Just start every year with Monty Python.
Yeah.
Kind of what Backlot's going to end up doing.
I'd be all for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to talk about not just movies, but also professional wrestling. This is our podcast called Burritos and Bodyslams. We like to focus a little bit on not just the burritos, not just the body slams, but we also want to talk about a little bit of that stigma of male mental health as well. And so we're going to get into all of that. But coming off the heels of what I felt was the best pay-per-view that WWE has done post-COVID. It was this past week. Now, the Rumble is always something to look forward to. We now know who is going to be in the main event of each of the WrestleMania matches. Maybe not necessarily the main event, but at least going toward a championship match. And we had Bianca Belair win the women's Royal Rumble, and the returning Adam Copeland Edge won the men's Royal Rumble, going coast to coast, the third man to do so. So Andy, did you get a chance to sit down and watch the Rumbles? I know you weren't able to right away, but Casey and I were talking during the entire shows.
Yeah, no, I haven't had a chance to watch the whole thing. I've watched some highlights of it. Which is kind of how I feel like I watch wrestling these days, is I'll be like, oh, well, I'll check out a clip on Twitter that somebody posted and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, I think, if I remember correctly, Charlie, I think you predicted that Bianca Belair would probably win the Women's Rumble.
I don't know if I predicted it, but it was what I was hoping for. I know that's what I really wanted. I was really like, if I were to tell you what I was actually predicting, it was the upsetting victory of the second in a row of Charlotte Flair.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I thought they would maybe take a safer route with the women. So I'm over the moon. But I had there's a wrestler, a guy who was local for a time being, but he's now training down at Booker T's school in Texas. He goes by Dirty Jeff.
Sure.
And Jeff and I like to text each other like these ridiculous, stupid things. Because I mean, when you have a gimmick like Dirty Jeff, that's just who you are. And I love Jeff to death. I really do. But we were predicting some stuff, and I told him before the Rumble started. This was at like 2 p.m. I was like, man, like all I want, and I don't think this is going to happen, is I want the final two to be Rhea Ripley and Bianca. And I wanted Bianca to win it because I just didn't. Rhea's gonna make a career out of herself. She's too much of a stud to not do so. So I just didn't feel like she needed the win. She might get there eventually, but I was like, man, that would just be so cool to see those two those two talent go at it in the final two. And then when it finally happened, it was like the season finale of Mandalorian for me. I'm like sitting at the end of my seat. I was like, I got it right for once. So but that was, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's really what I wanted. And I'm so happy that it happened, because you can fantasy book if you don't fantasy believe. And I fantasy booked and it happened. So
yeah. For me, I think it allows the story to go in different directions. It gives a push to someone who doesn't have that yet. So yeah, I think that's a good choice. My prediction was not Bianca Belair. I felt like WWE was going to kind of take this Firefly Funhouse idea and really run with it and have Alexa win, and then in the men's side of things, I thought that Bray Wyatt would win that as well. But Edge, I think that's cool. I think there's a teenager in me that was like, yeah. But yeah, I think it was. I think the highlights that I saw, I thought it looked like seemed like it was a good Rumble. It didn't have at least it didn't feel like it had the overkill of surprise entrance. I mean, there were some good surprise entrants. I saw that there was a hurricane coming through. But
I even said, because Shane Helms is like, he's addicted to his Twitter. Like, he's tweeting every hour or so, and I just didn't see anything from him. Like, okay, this dude's gonna be in it.
But yeah, I thought it looked like it was a lot of fun. I'm excited to see. I really like what they're doing with Edge post his victory. How he is kind of going up to every champion and like, hey, I could choose you. I could choose you, Pikachu. But yeah, it'll be fun to see who he lands on and what match we end up getting. But from everything I've heard, it sounds like it was a fun Rumble, really enjoyable watch. So somewhere down the road, I'm going to have to put that in my eye holes and see what I like.
Yeah, Casey, I know you watched it.
Yeah, I think I said it last time we were together that I was going to finally jump back on the network, and finally did. Even though it was announced I would have to drop the network in like 2 months anyway and sign up for Peacock, I guess. I don't know. Fine. But this, I jumped in halfway through Sasha Banks and Carmella. So I finished that match and then watched the rest of the pay-per-view. Miss Goldberg, guys. Oh, come on. I guess
you didn't miss anything.
That's what I heard, which is fine. I know I'm the Goldberg apologist on this show. That's fine, but I don't need to watch 55-year-old Goldberg try to wrestle Drew McIntyre anymore. But the Rumble matches were incredible. I thought both matches were some of the best of both the women's Rumbles and the men's Rumbles. I mean, I had my problems with both, but didn't deter from my enjoyment of either. My biggest problem with the women's one was story progressions that I'm trying to catch up on, like with Charlotte and Lacey Evans and Ric Flair, that just happened for a minute, and then they're like, all right, on with the Royal Rumble. I'm like, why didn't we? No, keep going with the story. Like, one of them eliminate each other. Have Ric Flair get dick kicked or something.
I have a 30-year-old girlfriend, guys. I have a 30-year-old girlfriend.
What else is new, Rick? You're 78 years old and you still have a 30-year-old girlfriend. You've been 78 years old for 40 years.
Is like 40 too. This is the greatest moment of my life.
Has Ric Flair been like retired forever? Like, he looks like he's been 65 years old for the last 40 years.
Yep.
Yeah, but I had a blast watching both of these, and I mean the men's Royal Rumble was everything I loved growing up with wrestling. I mean, Edge and Orton #1 and 2 is like my childhood wrestling right there. Like, Rated RKO is like when I was watching Monday Night Raw every week, and seeing those two just scrap and go at it, I thought was awesome. Seeing Christian come back had me in tears. I absolutely love that. Yeah. Carlito was like, oh, Carlito, you're back. Yes. You're jacked. Jacked. As a kid, Carlito was probably my top 2 favorite wrestler as a kid growing up. Why?
Wow.
I don't know. It was the apple and the hair got me hooked.
So I don't know if either of you were when Carlito was kind of making his first initial run. Was one of the first house shows I ever went to here in Sioux Falls. And me, my buddy Patrick, and my buddy Dustin were huge Carlito fans. So he's also wrestling Chavo. Okay. And it was right after Eddie passed.
Sure.
So everybody's doing the Eddie chant and everything like that. And we'd join in on it. But then, like, as soon as the crowd lulled, we would start cheering for Carlito. and that was when he was a heel. Yeah. And shortly thereafter that, they made him a face. Yeah. So we like to take responsibility for the fact that Carlito turned face right after WrestleMania that year.
All because of Charlie.
And we didn't really when he turned face, we're like, they finally did it, and then he wasn't as cool anymore. So we were wrong, but But seeing Carlito for me, I was like, I saw how big he got. And I was like, Jesus. Like, I think I texted you guys, like, he looked like he ate Epico and lifted Primo. Like, it was like he's just curling his brother.
All those apples are paying off for him.
I know, right? Whatever's in those apples.
He didn't even get to spit the apple in anyone's face. I was just.
I know, because he didn't have an apple. Did you see go back and look at the entrance? Because he didn't have it in his hand, and he just goes, I don't have it. I don't have it. Like the 8K camera was like, I don't have it. Like you could see him goes like, I don't have an apple. I don't have an apple.
Can we talk about that 8K camera and how weird that looked? It looked like I was like, are they intercutting like the new 2K game entrances into the Rumble here to promote it, or what's going on here?
That's what I thought too. I was like, this looks like a video game. And I noticed it. The first one I noticed was when Victoria came out, and she did her whole thing, and it's like, what is like? There's so much dimension to this. Who took the time? And then when they would cut away from that, it almost looked like they filmed the entrances before the Rumble, and then they gave him a second, like, run to the ring.
Well, it's like the camera was like at the edge of the ramp, and it couldn't turn left or right to follow them. It just was stationary, I think, is what it was. So every time you cut past, it's like, it looked like it was like you could have taken it from the video game.
Right. The
only one it worked for was John Morrison, just because his entrance leans towards that.
It does. You're right. And I love that we have this prediction that it should be Mojo and John Morrison. So we have Mojo and Jomo.
Bring back the Miz Taraj in full.
Yep. That's right. All right, boys. Well, let's get on. Let's start with how we always start with our burrito reviews. Today in Sioux Falls, when I went to go walk my dog this morning, it was -8 degrees. So I was not about to leave my house as much as I wanted a Giliberto's burrito. I was going to do the Giliberto's breakfast burrito, but I really didn't want to leave my home.
Nope.
So I don't know about how you guys and what you wanted to review, because I know like today's a little bit different, because usually we're eating right before we start recording.
Right.
But I couldn't do it today. But what burritos did you guys choose this week? And give us your thoughts on the burritos here in town.
I was going to do the same thing you were going to do, Charlie. I was going to go get a breakfast burrito and have that right before we started. And then you said, guys, it is cold as balls outside. Do not go get a burrito. Like, that's fine. I'm not leaving my house then, and it's nice and warm in here. Room in the air fryer. Guys, don't keep that O's too long, because that is not the way to have your frozen burrito. Because the outside of my burrito was almost burned to a crisp. It was hard as a rock. The inside was like molten lava. Nothing was good about it. I burnt my mouth. I couldn't eat anything because the taco shell was too hard. It was maybe the worst burrito I've had in a very long time. And so for all those people out there listening, if you are living in your college dorm and you do have an air fryer and you eat frozen burritos, don't mix the two together. Don't do that. There's nothing wrong with the traditional microwave frozen burrito.
They're not allowed to have air fryers in their room.
No.
Yes. Like, and if there is a college that's allowing an air fryer in a dorm room, like the first day that my wife and I got our air fryer, just like everybody, we're trying everything. Like, throw a fucking Pop-Tart in there. So we actually were using it so much that it set off our smoke detector. Because of the heat that gets projected from it.
The crazy thing is, I made burgers in there one time.
Okay.
And it was actually really good.
Interesting.
Nice.
Yeah. Huh. But frozen burritos is a no-no in the air fryer.
Yeah.
Go with the classic microwave, boys.
That's it. That's the way to go.
That's it.
Andy, did you have a burrito this week?
I sure did. I had we had Qdoba at one point this week, and I got my mild standby of the adobo chicken burrito, and man, oh man, for a a burrito that you can buy at a restaurant that is a big time corporate chain. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. I enjoyed it. I've come to like, oddly enough, like as much as I like their burritos at Qdoba, I've come to really like their tacos. They have the 3 like tacos that you can get as well as an entree. And man, those are good. For me, they're real small. So it's like I've got to get the tacos as a side dish to kind of lead up to the burrito. But yeah, I quite enjoyed my burrito. I get it without lettuce because I think putting lettuce on a burrito, that's a war crime. Like, don't do that.
That's a thing? People put lettuce on their burrito?
I guess so.
Do they put it in the burrito or on top of the burrito?
I think it goes inside. I think they put it inside. I've never gotten mine with lettuce, but I feel they give it in the list of ingredients, you can choose lettuce. And I'm like, who wants to do that to a beautiful bean and rice concoction?
That makes it a wrap. That's not a burrito.
No. So no lettuce.
Warm lettuce too.
Yeah. I don't get it. But like I said, I've got the beans, the rice, the cheese, and that beautiful, delicious chicken. I'm all on for that Qdoba burrito. Like I said, it's not it's not the taco stand at the end of the street. It's not Giliberto's, but it does the trick. And I was satisfied with my Qdoba burrito.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love I love to get the 3 taco meal at Qdoba. And I always years ago I moved out to California for about a year of my life, and everybody that I knew out there, they're like, "Oh, you guys don't have Chipotle out there. You don't have Chipotle in South Dakota." And they hyped it up. And I was like, "Okay, let's go to Chipotle." I went to Chipotle. Like, "Oh, what do you think? What do you think of this?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's Qdoba."
Right.
We have Qdoba. Yeah. I'm not that sheltered.
Yep. That's how I feel. I'm like, oh, cool. There's a Chipotle in town. I got a Qdoba down the street. I don't need to go across town to get a burrito that probably is going to be just as good, if not a little bit less than Qdoba.
Right. Well, and Chipotle apparently had to make a turn face, if you will, and offer queso because they never did. That's 80% of the reason people go to Qdoba is because of their queso.
Yeah.
So
that queso rules. So
yeah, it's awesome. And I have yet to go to Chipotle here in town.
Yeah, so. Get on their level, Chipotle.
I need to bring you down to my level, Chipotle. You classy asses. So I was going to go get a breakfast burrito from Giliberto's. I was really looking forward to it. And then I saw -8 and my dog decided he needed to walk this morning too. Yeah. Nope, that's it. I'm not leaving the house until I go see Cool Runnings. So but I will tell you, so when we initially got the snow, I just started my new job. So I'm driving to Canton each day. I took off very early that day when we initially got the snow, and I was starving. It usually takes me about 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes to get to work. This one took me about an hour because I took off early, and I was like, I just want a burrito. I just want a breakfast burrito. I don't care. So I stopped at the one gas station that serves hot stuff, and I had a hot stuff breakfast burrito that was sitting in the warmer.
Yeah.
I don't regret it.
No.
I don't regret it. I ate that. I'm like, yeah, it's pizza sausage, but it's covered in decent cheese, and some egg. And I was like, I don't hate this. I was really expecting to kind of stop and not enjoy what I was doing. But then the day that Friday, I went and filled up my car, and I stopped at Hy-Vee. Hy-Vee serves giant breakfast burritos.
Really?
They're like the size of my forearm. I couldn't believe it. I went in to go grab a cup of coffee, and I saw that. So I will tell you that they're homemade. It wasn't like a prepackaged, like you could taste like the egg was made in-house, and the sausage was like
Nice.
they were sausage links and they were cut up. I would highly recommend the breakfast burrito from Hy-Vee as well, but the hot stuff breakfast burrito, that's my review. Didn't hate it.
Didn't hate it. Not sorry.
Not sorry that I did it. All right, but the biggest part of our show is our male mental health check. The big upon everything, we love professional wrestling. We love talking about food, and we're going to talk way more about both here in a bit. But we want to make sure everyone's doing okay. If you are somebody who is struggling out there, make sure to go to NAMI.org and look for the help. You can find mental health professionals in your area. There are a lot of online resources. I'm finding there are more and more podcasts that I listen to that are being sponsored by these places that offer some help. So if you are somebody who is struggling with mental health, please be sure to reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you guys, and reach out to a friend, family member, or mental health professional if you are struggling. And our big goal here is to remove the stigma of talking about male mental health. So whichever of you guys wants to start, how the hell are you guys, since we actually got to physically speak? I know we talked quite a bit, but how the hell are you guys?
I'll go ahead and start. I think I usually start this one.
No, great.
But yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Today is a little rough because for some reason I didn't sleep great. So I woke up and I was like, I gotta record in 3 hours. Like, come on, guys, why are we doing this? And then you get up and you start moving around and you're like, I'm gonna do it. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be great. Just get over it. But yeah, you have that. Like, if I feel like I'm kind of a creature of routine to an extent. I like things to go a certain way, and if there's ever any kind of deviation from that, that's when maybe my anxiety starts to kick in. And even though this is just us three sitting and chatting and having a good time, like, still, because I didn't get sleep and because my back was hurting, I was like, this is I'm gonna be terrible. I'm gonna be terrible. I'm not gonna be entertaining. No one's gonna want to listen to me. And I'm just like, do we have to do this? Do we have to do this today? And then, after the first 2 hours passed of me not being able to fall asleep, the last hour is when you kind of come to terms with it, where you're like, yes, I'll go. They'll call me. They'll keep calling. It's like a Ferris Bueller Cameron. Calling me. Keep calling me. So yeah, I mean, other than that, like, it wasn't that lack of sleep wasn't sparked by anything. I've been in pretty good spirits all week. I'll be vague about it here, but you guys know that I'm in the process of taking steps towards losing weight. We'll put it that way. And I had an evaluation with that went well. That said, kind of the doctor that I spoke with about that said that if I get myself in the mindset to really have at it and get focused, she has all the faith in the world in me that I will be successful at this. I'm a person that if there's a goal that I really want to accomplish, I'm someone that will accomplish that. So I think that's reassuring. And since then, I have reduced my soda intake to 1 20-ounce bottle a day, which, while that is still a lot,
that's huge, though, Andy.
That's way less for me. And I have, since I'm off on Fridays. I was off. This is my last Friday off. Usually the work cafeteria, that's where I have my soda. I grab a soda there. Well, since I've been home, I have not had any soda, just drinking this big ass bottle of water. So no soda. And then the other hard thing for me is cheese. Oh God, I love cheese. Like, I love cheese.
We just had a full conversation about queso, man.
Right. I know. Like, I love cheese. And usually, like, I'll have some on my sandwiches, and then I'll have some mixed in something at dinner, but also during the day, they have these cheese like sticks that you buy a stick of cheese. All day I'll be snacking on those. I'll be like, yeah, I'm gonna have some cheese. Well, I have not had any of that snack cheese. My cheese has been restricted to meal times. So it's baby steps, but I'm trying to get myself in the mind frame of, either I will lose the weight naturally, or I will go forward with what I'm supposed to do and see where that takes me. So yeah, it's and I feel good about it. So that was a really long rant just to kind of be like, everything feels pretty good right now.
Well, and don't sell yourself short. Like, quitting drinking soda is a huge undertaking. Like, it really is, because like it's such an addictive product, and like you really need to hang on to that. I'm glad you're drinking tons of water and everything like that. Man. So are you peeing more? Like,
oh god. So I have to take there's a medication that I take anyway, because I had atrial fibrillation, and sometimes that can lead to a fluid buildup on your heart. So you take a pill that will help pump the fluids out. So I take that usually, and on a regular basis, and your body gets used to it, so you don't pump as much out. Well, drinking 2 or 3 of these a day, this is like an 86 ounce bottle of water. Like, drinking 2 or 3 of these a day. Yesterday, it was like every 20 minutes, I was like, I gotta pee. I gotta pee. So,
gotta log out of work. You're like,
I gotta go.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been peeing a lot. That's fun.
That's a lot of water, man.
Andy, I have also been peeing a lot. I got one of those jugs for Christmas.
Yeah.
And I was told I need to, based on body weight and how much water you're supposed to take, and I'm supposed to drink 2 to 2.5 of those a day. That's a lot of water.
It is a lot of water.
And I've been trying to do it. It's about 2 a day I'm on, and then if I'm home, I'll fill up. I'll keep that one at work and try to drink 2 of those while I'm at work for 9 hours, and then come home and have my other water. But yeah. I know the struggle of trying to drop pop. It's hard.
Really hard.
I had it for this was probably 5-6 years ago, where for a good 3-year stretch I didn't drink pop and jump back on, and then it's kind of been downhill from there. It's like you get hooked on pop, and it might start with 1 a day or something like that, or 1 a week, and then they'll just probably continue. It's a tough thing to kick, and I'm trying to do that too, especially sugary soda. I'm trying to kick. I mean, I mostly drink diet Pepsi. It's still not good for you.
Right.
It's my favorite pop, but it's still not good for you.
I'm more fascinated with the fact that Casey is a Diet Pepsi drinker.
Diet Pepsi?
I don't know why.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, when I think Casey Kelderman, I don't think Diet Pepsi. I think like Mountain Dew Code Red.
Yeah.
For some reason.
In a pinch, it's Mountain Dew Code Red or Live.
There you go.
But Diet Pepsi's the go-to.
That's awesome.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I've been trying to do as far as health-wise, is my body too. Is like I was telling you guys, for the last month or so, 3 weeks to 4 weeks, is my leg has felt like I'm a 65-year-old man trying to walk around and get out of bed. Yeah. And I mean, for a couple nights last week, I couldn't even sleep in the bed. I had to sleep in the recliner. My leg was that bad. Yeah. So I finally went to the chiropractor. They did some work on it, and like I said to you guys, it's felt amazing since. I mean, it's not 100% where it was beforehand, but I mean, it's getting there, and I think it's taking steps, talking to people. I'm one of those people. I hate going to the doctor. I hate telling people I'm hurt or sick. I don't like doing that stuff. And so finally, when I was at the chiropractor, I had brought it up before, and she's like, well, we'll look at it if it continues to get worse. And so she finally asked, and it was like, yeah, it's still not great. But that's one thing I want to get better at, especially as I'm realizing I'm getting older. I need to start bringing these things up myself.
Right.
Because it's just not going to happen unless I bring it up. So that's one thing I've been trying to really, really focus on is being able to bring up when you have physical ailments that are affecting you. I mean, a big one for me was earlier this year, starting going to the chiropractor. started 3 times a week. I'm down to 1 a week. So that's great. And it's been,
you started because of your back and neck, correct?
Yeah. And I haven't had any problems with that since. And
good.
It's been amazing. I mean, there was some nights where I'd go to sleep and I couldn't go to work for 2 days because my neck would not allow me to get out of bed. Like that's how bad it was. So it's amazing that doing this for 4 or 5 months has been that much of a change already. So if anyone's on the fence about it, go check out a chiropractor. Don't go to the chiropractors that like just push on your back and crack your neck.
Yeah.
That doesn't do anything. I've done those
physical therapy and
they use this little. It looks like a pogo stick, is what I call it, and they use that on your vertebrae. Wow. Yeah, it's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Chiropractic work has gone a lot further than the last time that I went. I'm just imagining just like a pygmy jumping on your back with that pogo stick.
That's pretty much what it is. And then, I mean, as far as like male mental health stuff goes, I mean, I'm kind of getting into, I think you guys might be feeling this too, the winter blues. It's starting to sink in, the winter depression. It's like, I want to get out. COVID is not helping. I mean, we're kind of, I hope on the back end of it now, but still I want to get out. I want to do stuff. I don't like being confined into my house and work every day, waking up when the sun is still down, going home from work and the sun is down. It's like, I don't like that. I like the sun. It's good. The sun is good. So I'm feeling that, but you know what? There's always, for me, it's always what's the next thing to look forward to. Sure. And I mean, this is one thing to look forward to, doing the show with you guys. I mean, last night went and watched The Thing at the State Theater here. That was something to look forward to. Next weekend is me and Kayla's 5-year anniversary. Aww. So that's what we're looking forward to. We're going to Sioux City for the weekend. So it's fun stuff to kind of look forward to and do each week is what I'm really focusing on. Take it week to week. Don't have to look at the big picture as like, that's my next milestone I need to reach. It's like, no, I'm going to go watch this movie this weekend, or I'm going to get my favorite food from my favorite restaurant on this day. Like that's one of my favorite things to do now, is just focus on the small things. Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm glad that you're taking your health into consideration, man, because you're much younger than both of us. And we don't want you I don't want you to reach my age and be like, I can't physically do this stuff. You know, and
it's not fun. It's not fun to get up there in years and be like, oh.
Yeah, and we could preach at you like we're your cool uncles, but we're your podcast partners. So we're not going to do that. But I'm glad that you are taking your health into consideration, man. I mean, that could lead to mental health issues, no matter what. Like, I totally get that. So, I got to start my new job 2 weeks ago.
Woo!
Yeah. And that's been a lot of fun. I didn't realize how stressful my old work environment was.
Sure.
And I've really been enjoying it. I've gotten to see our entire process out at the treatment center, and I'm shadowing a bunch of people and then learning how to do my actual, like the bones of my actual job. And it's been fun. It keeps my mind going. It's something new to learn and everything like that. But I told you guys this, and I wanted to talk about it on the show. So, a big part of what they do out there is because their treatment is based off of the 12 steps of recovery, aside from the medical stuff that you go through when you're actually like withdrawing from drugs and alcohol. So I got to do a Native American sweat lodge as part of their spiritual recovery and I don't know if I told Andy this, but I totally told Casey this. Casey and I went to Dazed and Confused last week, and I told him about it, and it was the day after. So for those who don't know what a Native American sweat lodge is, please look it up, because I didn't realize how hot it got in there. And so they sprung it on me. I had shadowed a counselor the day before, and we were just kind of running around. He had a very busy day, so I didn't have a chance to like fill up my water bottle, and I was a little bit dehydrated just getting into work that day. And then my boss came in, hey, our Native American counselor wanted to invite you to the sweat lodge tonight. Do you want to do it? And I'm like, yeah, I do. But realized I had only had like a cup of water in the last 24 hours. So I just chugged a bunch of water. I'm like, I'm gonna get through this. I get there and they tell me like, yeah, it gets up to like 300 degrees in there. Right? And it's a hut. This is not like you're standing in a lodge with a towel around you, hanging out in a sauna. Like, you're shoulder to shoulder with everyone else in that lodge. Right? And I'm right next to the stones. Like, they dig a pit and they throw these smoldering hot rocks and throw tons of water on it. Just and I totally hallucinated. And it was so cool. And I was telling Casey, so I had this vision of me like walking up this snowy hill, and I stopped. Oh, hey, kitty. And what I saw was this owl just come down and stare at me. And I saw that 4 times. And then finally during like the 4th session, me and this owl are like hunting together. I'm like distracting things and the owl swooping down and grabbing its prey. So long story short, my mental health is it's good right now. But I'm enjoying my new job. I'm loving what I'm doing so far, and I'm hoping that will continue. But I'm kind of on the same train as you guys. Now that I'm feeling better with how stressful my other job was, I got home on Friday, and I never do this. You know, we always throw on a movie on Fridays, or we try to do something like that. My wife is notorious for falling asleep during movies. It's like, can't keep a movie on for more than 45 minutes. She came in, like, sat with me on the couch, and I curled up on her shoulder, and I fell asleep at like 8:30 or 9. And I slept the rest of the night until about 6:30 in the morning, when I finally like realized I had been sleeping for as long as I had been. And I think that was just I'm learning a ton of new things. I'm now like getting into a new routine, but also like I don't have the stress of my old job, and my body finally realized that. Mm-hmm. And I don't sleep like that. Like I'm maybe a 6-hour a night sleeper. Like I'll read and everything like that, but it was hilarious to see me just like curled up on the couch with my dog. Like, and she finally like woke me up. She's like, "Hey, let's go to bed." I looked at her and I'm like, "Oh, what time is it?" And she goes, "It's 11. I've been watching Skin Wars for 2 hours." I didn't even hear that. So I was out. I think things are good. But I'm also on the same track as you guys. I want to get into something a little bit more physical here and start getting into working out again and eating correct, because I think that's something that I also struggle with, is that I'm short, but I'm round. And like, I don't know, like being 5'5", it's very difficult to find pants that are the right length without ruining them within a week. And when you are as round as I am, like I can get pants that fit my waist, but then I've got cuffs that are about this big on the bottom. And
Charlie's pulling like off the man prees.
Right.
And I do. I just look like Tom Hanks, turning back into a child in Big with that suit. And so I want to get back into doing some workouts and stuff. I used to do kickboxing, and I really enjoyed it, to the point where I bought a punching bag, and I have one upstairs. So I kind of want to start getting back into that. I would like to try DDPY because I've only done it once. And yeah, but that's where I'm at, guys. And I'm happy that we were able to kind of talk about that. And again, anybody who's struggling, NAMI.org, make sure to go check that out here for you guys. Now, before we get into the wrestling talk, Casey, myself, and Andy did get into a funny fight in our group chat. And Casey, I don't know if you want to address the fact that I don't think ghosts are real.
Charlie
But
is
I
not
wanna-
a believer, guys. That is what we are trying to say. He does not believe in the supernatural. He does not believe in ghosts, ghouls, or anything of the sorts. He is wrong. There is physical evidence. Have you guys ever watched Ghost Adventures? Zach Bagans has proved it time and time again. I don't know what
After time.
He's been scratched. He's been possessed. He has owned possessed items. He owned a possessed house. Charlie, what do you not believe about ghosts?
Yeah.
Why did this get thrown back in my face?
Okay, here's the deal. I love anything ghost related, and and maybe that just leans.
Not everything.
I
like
love
that,
horror,
you know?
and that was kind of my introduction to it. Was ghost stories. I grew up on like scary stories to tell in the dark, and a lot of those are ghostly stories, and that's some of the first stuff I was allowed to watch. And I mean, in high school, every Friday night, I would stay home at 11 o'clock when other kids were probably hanging out with their friends and watched every new episode of Ghost Adventures. But I love ghost stories, and maybe that leans towards like why I do believe in ghosts or the supernatural or spirits. I don't know what to call them. I don't know what they actually are. I do believe in them. I have had experiences that I would love to share if you guys would want to hear them, but I love it. I don't, and again, it might just be for my own horror enjoyment. I don't know. That's fine, but ghosts are real, man.
But okay, so the conversation started.
If wrestling's real, damn it, ghosts are real too.
It's still real to me.
Ghosts are still real to me, damn it.
I wish we had a soundbite of just, it's not fake. Okay, so I was really expecting, because like I don't like necessarily believe any of that. Obviously. And like Casey puts in the group chat just like, guys, are ghosts real? And I just looked at it, I was like, fucking no, Casey. They are not. And what I wasn't expecting was like the two of you to gang up on me about ghosts being real.
We ghost shamed you, Charlie. We ghost
You really did.
Let's get out of here, Charlie.
Andy, what leads you to believe in this? I know.
Well, it was funny because, you guys were having this playful, conversation. And I'm like, well, listen, guys, here's my thoughts on the matter. Like all of a sudden,
NPR, just
real serious. Like, well, I believe that there's a world and spirits find things unfinished, so they want to make sure that they are there for the people that they've left behind in those moments of need. It's more of a presence than a ghost, actually, unless they're the spirits that still have unfinished business or feel somewhat maligned, and those are the ones that just this very like kind of serious. But I mean, that's kind of how I feel. Like, I think the world of ghosts can go either way. There are the ghosts that are there that serve as like it's them checking in on you, and then there are ghosts that are there that this is what is this podcast rated?
I've said the F word already.
Okay, so the ghosts that are there that are like, you fucked up and we're gonna make you pay, or whoever lived in this house before you fucked up and we're face blind. We can't tell that you're somebody else. So get out of my house, that kind of thing. So yeah, I believe in ghosts. I believe in ghosts. I've seen Ghostbusters many, many times, so I know that they're real.
I've seen Scooby-Doo though too, and they reveal ghosts are not real.
That's true.
It's very conflicting.
But yet they're still scared every single time. The gang is still scared. So I think that means that there's still something there.
Shaggy's seen some shit. That's what.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's his own fault. Okay, like dude,
well,
you get a bad
that's what happens when you munch on Scooby snacks and smoke a big bowl of weed with your dog. Why did this come up? I don't even remember. I probably brought it up. I would assume I'm usually the one that brings up this, but
I know that I had made a comment that ghost hunting shows are the Cinemax porn version of television.
That might have been
it. Like I said, something like ghost hunting is to horror as Cinemax is to porn.
It's probably true. It's probably true.
I take offense to that. What were you going to say?
Casey, you said that you've had experiences though,
yes.
And I don't want to like diminish said experiences because I want to hear what those experiences were.
Okay. You want me to? I'll just. You want to do like one now, or
and we can save them for later. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's start with this one. This is one of the ones I remember very vividly. I worked in high school. I worked at Pizza Ranch in my hometown, and it was always like a thing where people were like, oh, it's haunted. Why? I don't know. The building has been up for 50 plus years, and like maybe something happened. I don't know. It's been multiple things besides Pizza Ranch, but it was always like it's haunted. Like, okay, cool. There were stories of like boxes like just flying off the shelf out of nowhere. Like they would just fly off out of nowhere, and doors would like open by themselves and stay open when no one was there. So there was always these kind of stories going on, and things would happen. So one night, me and another guy were closing the store. So whenever we closed there, it was our job to obviously shut all the lights off, make sure the everything is off, and make sure, the door, both entrances are locked. So I do that. So he's like, I'm going to go bring the money to the bank, the deposit. So he runs across the street is our bank. Runs across there. I'm locking the doors. I finish shutting off the lights. I'm standing at our front desk, and over off to my left from the front register, you can see the buffet. And then behind the buffet, there's a little window. And the window is a two-way window. It leads into the manager's office. So you can't see in unless the lights are on, but you can always see out. So the lights were all off in this place. I'm just kind of looking around, waiting for this other guy to come back. And I look over past the buffet. All of a sudden, the light turns on in there. What? And so I'm like, okay, that's weird. The doors are locked. All the lights were off. I just shut off that light. So I go and wait by the entrance. I'm like, I'm not going over there in case there is someone here. Mm-hmm. So I wait for the other guy to come back, and I'm like, dude, that light just turned on by itself. It's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, the light just turned on by itself. He's like, okay, well, I'm going to go make sure no one's in here. So he walks back there. We both walk back there. There's no one in the store. There's no one turning on any lights. He shuts the lights back off, and we leave for the night. But that wasn't the only ghostly encounter that had ever happened there with me. So it was weird enough that a light turned on by itself.
Yeah.
So maybe a year or two later, I'm working there again. I'm in that office putting money away in there, counting the money. And I walk out, and as soon as I walk out the door, right outside that office, there is a coat rack. Okay. And so there's all hangers hanging there. Also, I walk immediately as I step outside that door. One of the coat hangers just smacks against the wall right next to my head, like really hard.
Like almost tries to hit you.
Like almost tries to hit me. It was like really like I heard it and it started swinging back and forth really fast. I'm like someone threw reared back and then let it fling. And I walked. I'm like. Looked around the corner, no one there. Looked anywhere near me, there was no one there. I walked 20, 30 feet away where the other four workers were. I'm like, none of you were back there, right? Like, no, we've been up here doing dishes and stuff. Like, well, a coat hanger just tried to hit me in the face. So this place is haunted. So two things happened, same spot, same location. That is one of the two stories I have of ghostly encounters. We have never figured out why, who, or what the ghost may have been, but I am here to tell you as a Zach Baggins fan that he should go check out the Pizza Ranch in Rock Valley, Iowa, because it is, in fact, haunted.
So what do you think the ghost had against you, Casey?
What's that?
What do you think the ghost had against you, personally?
Maybe because I believed in them. I don't know. That's what I tend to believe is like if you're aware of their presence, I think they may lean more towards affecting you in your life. That's what I believe. And like, if you believe that they're there, they may be more inclined to affect you in some way, shape, or form. I think that's like one of the things. Like, I do believe in like possession, and I think you help invite that into yourself. It can't just happen out of nowhere. You have to sort of invite it into yourself. I've never done that. I don't want to ever get possessed. I do believe in that. I do think that is terrifying and scary. Never want that to happen to me.
Times. I don't want that to happen to you either.
Yeah, I don't like pea soup going in my mouth. I don't want it going back out either. So, yeah, that's one thing I think is like you sort of invite these things into your life in a way, whether subconsciously or consciously that you do.
Yeah.
I have plenty more ghost stories to
go ahead, Andy.
I was gonna say I think Charlie is still not convinced. No. I think Charlie's still like, somebody listen, you guys, somebody push that hanger really hard.
Yeah, I am a little bit. Or there was a heat vent. Something along those lines, but that's you know what? I'm not going to deny you of your experience. I get it. Like, I'm not going to do that. But you brought it up, and I think we'll continue this.
Okay.
So I put out a challenge that because the three of us are kind of like movie writer types, that we write a short story about a ghost experience, but that experience or the supernatural experience has to be a professional wrestler who has passed away. So were you guys able to write your stories?
I wrote it in my head, Charlie.
Oh, Andy, you get to go first then. I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to put myself in the moment of hearing a ghost story from Andy.
We should set the mood.
So, when I first moved in with my girlfriend, it was the first time that I had really lived somewhere where there was a dog. So we she has a dog that she loves very, very deeply. And, I didn't really know what it was like to sleep in a space where there was a dog. Me being who I am, I kind of imagined that the dog would just kind of sleep like normal. Well, so I move in and it's time for the first night to go to sleep with the dog there. And I'm sleeping and I kind of half awake for a little bit and I hear like, what is that? What is that noise? So I try and, wrestle myself back, laying down. And then again, I hear like, what is that noise? And I get up, go into the kitchen, and nothing is going on in there, but I see the dog asleep in its bed. So I'm like, I guess she must be snoring. I don't know. So I was able to go back to sleep, no problem. Next night, same thing happens. I'm sleeping. Whoa, hold on. Gotta adjust myself on this chair. It's on its last legs. So I hear this. I'm sleeping. I wake up for a second. I hear I'm like, what? I've never heard her make that noise before in her life. I've got to go check this out. So I go in there and I see the dog standing looking at a cabinet in the kitchen. I'm like, what are you looking at? So I walk over to the cabinet and I see this blue streak, like a blue fingerprint kind of on this cabinet. I'm like, what is that? And again, I don't know what's going on. So I go back to bed. I'm just like, it's the dog's just, I must have had frosting earlier that was blue and I got it on the cabinet. Next night, same thing. Wake up, go to the kitchen. But this time there's like an orange streak on the cabinet. And I'm like, what? Why are these streaks changing colors so frequently? Why can't they just pick a pattern and stick with it? Like, why does it have to be different colored all the time? So then, I go back to bed. The next night, I am determined that I'm going to figure out what's going on. Like, I am going to watch and see what happens. So I sleep on the couch and Miko, the dog, sleeps over in the corner, and I'm barely falling asleep, and I hear a dun-dun on the counter, a dun-dun on the cabinet, a dun-dun, and I'm like, what is going on? And then I hear a dun-dun-dun-dun, and I'm like, what is this? And then so I get up, and I stand up, and I look in the kitchen, and there's nothing there, but I start to hear this voice very quietly in my ear. From the beyond, all I ask for is the cookie crisp. And time again, you get cinnamon toast crunch. Why do you get this disgusting cereal for me when the power of... And then out of nowhere, just out of thin air, I start to see this spirit of a man who's wearing this makeup across his face, this time yellow, and it has a fingerprint smudge, and he's got the makeup on his fingers, and he's got these streamers off of his arms. Next time when I come back, the warriors demand Cookie Crisp. I've had Cookie Crisp in my cabinet every night since.
I was just imagining, I'm gonna take you into the cockpit of a plane. Take that plane for a nosedive, Andy Heller.
I meant to leave something about I found this stray streamer just hanging out on the floor too. That's what happens when you improvise things instead of write it down.
And then the ghost will just stop making sense and wear a hat to the ring.
You feel the concoction and the temperature rise.
You will feel the spirit of the warriors. Okay, Andy or Casey, I'm gonna go next here because I want you to round this out. Because I wrote a story that is completely fictional. Andy, I'm glad that you had this experience with Jim Hellwig and that he didn't really make a racist comment at you. So, can you guys still see me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Good. I was just making sure. I'm only using one screen on my computer right now. So, all right. I wrote this from head to toe. And if I screw it up, because I literally finished it 10 minutes before we started recording. So
you did better than both of us, Charlie.
I was going to say, good job, Charlie.
It was finally over. 14 months of planning, meeting people, planning again. Angela and Mitchell were finally there. The end of this arduous journey was there for both of them. Oh, I can take these off here. And they were finally married. No more talking to caterers or upsetting people with decision-making. The two of them had spent the last 3 years together, with almost half of it trying to appease the masses with the veil of celebrating a day focused on them. Mitchell was especially relieved. A small-town boy from the southern part of Minnesota had put forth his finest effort to make everyone happy with this wedding. He pleased his parents by choosing such an intelligent and quick-witted woman in which to spend his life. That's all they asked of him. They wanted a special person that was befitting this polite boy that they brought up. Angela's family, however, were on the intimidating side to Mitchell. Mitchell was borderline bullied by his now two brother-in-laws, not in an obvious way, just in a way that would remind Mitchell that this wonderful young woman that he had fallen in love with was going to be protected at any cost. They would stand between Angela and Mitchell and stare down at him to establish their alpha-like presence when Angela first brought him to meet them. Or on another occasion, Angela's brother Michael threw a lawn dart just close enough to Mitchell's foot to let him know that to let him know he could hit him. Michael just smiled at Mitchell. Mitchell decided it would be best not to confront him, though Angela was extraordinarily embarrassed about how her two brothers acted. Angela also made mention to an uncle that never visited. She also seemed relieved after any family gathering that he didn't show up. Anytime that Mitchell would try to poke and prod for more information, Angela would always reply by saying, "He's bound to show up eventually. He always has perfect timing." She would chuckle as she hoisted her hands up and put quotations around the word perfect. Mitchell decided that it was best to wait until the day that they actually met this elusive and obviously enigmatic uncle. But today was finally over. They are finally married, and they were steps away from the honeymoon. 2 large strides in the sliding of one key card, and the two of them finally had time to just be with one another. No family, no pleasing the masses, just the two of them enjoying some much needed relaxation and the presence of one another. Mitchell stopped short at the door and put his arm around his new bride. "I'm so glad we finally got here," he said, and he picked her up to carry her across the threshold. "We finally have some time alone. I've been waiting so long to have you to myself." He placed his lips on hers and pushed the door open with his foot at the same time. Angela let out a small chuckle and an exclamation of excitement while she threw her available hand in the air to show her own jubilation for the moment. "My God, I never thought my family would let us get here," she said as she rolled off Mitchell's arm and scurried over to the bed. "I love you so much. Thank you for putting up with all of that today." She was referring to the moments when her brothers would take shots at the bar and try to mockingly wrestle one another on the dance floor. At one point, Michael gently swung a folding chair in the back of his older brother, Richard, and Richard fell to the ground as if it was the most painful moment of his life. The theatrics of this moment greatly entertained the other guests at the wedding. "It's fine. I've learned to understand your brother's bravado. It's been going on longer than I cared to know. Anyway, I love you. I can't wait to spend some time with you." "I love you too," Mitchell said as he started to unbutton his dress shirt. "No matter how your brothers were, today was absolutely perfect." At that moment, Mitchell felt something hit his face. It didn't hurt him, but it certainly caught him off guard. He looked around the room befuddled and stood straight up. He shot his eyes from left to right and didn't see anything. "What was that?" he asked. "What was what?" Angela replied. "Something hit my face." In a flash, something covered his face and blinded his sight. It covered his entire face.
Oh, no.
Oh, just as it was getting good.
Charlie froze.
Angela was holding a towel. A look of horror and displeasure took over her face. The look frightened Mitchell so much, and he was immediately befuddled. Angela planted her hands on the end of the bed as she was sitting on and started to rise up slowly. She shook her head in a panicky motion and started to gaze around the room. No, not today. This can't be happening today. Not this day. Why this day?" She began to breathe heavier and heavier. Mitchell rushed to the aid of his wife. "What is it? What's going on?" Mitchell asked. This isn't happening. Angela repeated several times. Her husband quickly took off his suit jacket and placed it around his wife's shoulders. He rubbed her shoulders and tried to place his face in front of hers to get her attention. However, Angela would not focus on him. She avoided his gaze and continued looking around the room and was obviously breathing heavy. Mitchell then grabbed his wife's face and forced him to look at her. "Angela, stop. You're scaring me. Look at me. What's going on?" Her lip quivered and she took a deep breath in. "Do you remember my uncle? The one that never shows up?" "Yes, that one." What about him? He's here. What do you mean he's here? I mean, he's here in the room right now. Mitchell let out a chuckle and let out syllable sounds that sounded like questions, but nothing complete sounding. He began to laugh. He looked around and stood straight up. Okay, I get it. He began to speak out loud in the suite. Come out, guys. Michael, Richard, you got me. Great job. He looked around and closed the bathroom door. Come on, guys. Mitch, honey, Angela tried to get his attention. It's not my brother's. What? Mitch, this is my Uncle Kurt. As she said that, Mitchell's suit coat that she was wearing was swiftly ripped off Angela's shoulders and crumpled to the floor. It began to almost fly across the floor as if it were attached to a fishing line toward the bathroom. And he pulled through the gap of the bottom of the door. The jacket disappeared. And then the alarm clock room crackled, and the static crackled with static and turned on. An ominous orchestra song played 3 notes. Bum, bum, bum. Mitchell stared at the radio. He recognized the notes from his childhood immediately. Angela, did you say your uncle's name was Kurt? I did. Is your uncle the Kurt that I'm thinking of? Mitchell, I'm sorry I didn't tell you. Mitchell knew the music was playing. The music playing was a famed professional wrestler, Kurt Hennig, better known to the world as Mr. Perfect. The music then stopped and an ominous silence took over the room. Angela crumbled into herself and started to hug her knees as she appeared to be protecting herself. She looked at her new husband with remorse written all over her face. Mitchell, honey, I'm sorry I didn't tell you. My uncle is Kurt Hennig. But didn't he pass away several years ago? He did. But he didn't quite go away. Mitchell, I know this is hard to comprehend, but my uncle Kurt is now Angela stammered. In his complete frustration and not knowing what was going on, Mitchell let anger and confusion take over, and he belted out the word "what" in a frustrated tone. He's what? What is it? Angela paused and filled her lungs with a deep breath from her nose. She looked at Mitchell and said, "A poltergeist." Mitchell's heart skipped a beat, and he looked toward the bathroom. With a loud crashing noise, the bathroom door opened up and the lights flashed on. Standing in the doorway was his own suit jacket in a pose that said, "Look at me," in an almost pretentious pose. The elbows of the suit pointed to either side of the door frame, and the chest was protruding out. Mitchell sat and saw the pose and finally realized this was not a joke. His wife and her family have been followed by the spirit of the perfect wrestler. Mitchell's eyes gazed toward the door and the suit jacket arm of the suit jacket's arm, and noticed it was holding another towel. The arm and the towel had swung downward, and in an upward motion behind it, the towel flew from behind the suit jacket and soared through the air. It landed on Mitchell's face and covered his face. Mitchell quickly removed it. Just as fast as he had removed the towel, his eyes moved back toward the suit jacket. The jacket appeared to take a stride toward him, and stood there, and Mitchell could feel the spirit of the former Intercontinental Champion peering down at him. You could almost feel the blue eyes of one of the greatest to ever lace up a pair of boots staring at him. Mitchell fell backward on the bed. Then Mitchell saw a tiny projectile launch up from above the suit jacket, and in one swift motion, he saw it get swatted away by the arm of it. He saw the projectile smack the wall, and it made a sharp noise against the wall. Mitchell slowly stood up and walked toward it. He had to squint to see it, but he put his hand up and slowly and hesitated as he touched what hit the wall. In that moment, Mitchell's stomach dropped and he turned queasy. In It was a piece of gum that hit the wall. The new husband panicked and turned his whole body toward his new wife. He froze with fear as he didn't know what to do. At this point, the spirit of his lovely bride's famous uncle was standing between him and his wife. He then saw more gum flying in the air. He took a step back and watched the gum hit the wall. It was moving so fast in the air, hitting the wall at such a rapid-fire pace that it sounded like a small machine gun. All of the chewed gum spelled out the ominous message to Mitchell. He stood up, looked back at the gum hanging on the wall. Mitchell could not quite make it out right away. He walked back toward the wall and read the wall to read it. He couldn't help but smile as he read, "Welcome to the perfect family." Mitchell turned to his wife and chuckled. He looked back at the suit jacket hanging over the cocky and ominous spirit of his wife's uncle and began to laugh hard. The jacket then pointed at Mitchell as if to send a message of his approval. He looked back at his wife, who finally looked relieved for the first time since this all started to happen. She said, "Thank you, Uncle Kurt," toward the jacket. The jacket fell to the floor and folded in itself. In a flash, every single object hoisted in the air and paused on the ceiling. Mitchell and Angela watched every physical object float on the ceiling for a brief moment and crashed to the floor. Mitchell dove to the side of the room, to the other side of the room, to protect his wife and covered her. They both stared at one another as they laid on the floor. Angela opened her eyes and looked at her husband and said, "Welcome to the family," as they looked at the ravished hotel suite and the mess that her uncle made for them.
Charlie took this very seriously.
He was a perfect. He was a perfect geist.
He was the perfect poltergeist. Now you guys know why I'm nervous. I'm just seriously.
Now you're gonna make me follow that.
Yeah, I should have put more effort into this.
Yeah.
Casey, you're up.
Okay. So this starts on just a typical Friday night. This couple in their mid-40s is ready to hit a night on the town. And so you know what? When you're in your 40s, you have 2 kids at home, you always got to find the babysitter. And so they have, unfortunately, not been able to reach the regular babysitter. She is out of town. She's out with her boyfriend. So they kind of resort to the next best thing. They call the neighbor over. And the neighbors have a 12-year-old daughter who volunteers to babysit these 5 and 7-year-olds. So very easy night. The parents invite the neighbor girl over to babysit. And so basically all she has to do, the kids have been fed already, hang out with them, let them play with their toys, maybe watch a movie, make sure they are in bed by 10 o'clock. The parents will be home by midnight. And then they will bring her back home. So it's a very simple night. I think many of us know how it is to babysit. And so, you know, they play a few board games. She lets the boys, you know, play with their toys. They throw on a movie, and it's about 9:45. So she kind of rounds up the kids to get ready for bed. Both of them sleep in the same room in their basement. So she goes on down. She makes sure both boys are in there. They both like to just have a little night light on in their room. So she makes sure that is on. And so she tucks both boys into bed for the night. So everything has gone as planned. But I think as many people who have babysat before, the worst part is waiting for the parents to come home. So at 12 years old, she's kind of just wondering what to do. She's wandering throughout the house. She you know, grabs a bag of chips, munches on a few Lay's potato chips. She lays down, watches a little bit of TV. But yeah, she's getting really bored in this house, as many of us do, waiting for those 2 hours for the parents to come home. And so she begins to explore the house. She wanders around. She wanders through the parents' bedroom, through the spare room upstairs. She wanders through the office. She wanders out to the garage. She wanders back downstairs, peeks in, checks on the boys. They're both sound asleep with their nightlight on. Then she walks further down into the basement, into their little storage room. And this is where they keep all their Christmas decor, their Valentine's Day decor, their Halloween decor. So she walks in there, just kind of checks everything out, makes sure nothing's out of the ordinary. Then she's stunned. She sees something she was not expecting to see down there. Back in the corner, tucked away behind the Christmas tree, is this life-size animatronic clown. And so she was like, okay, that startled me. That is scary. That is terrifying. She's like, wow, that is really weird. But she knows this family goes all out for their holidays. So she thinks nothing of it. She then walks up to the clown, just kind of checks it out, looks it up and down, pokes the nose. It does go in like a clown nose, and she's really impressed by this animatronic clown. Anyway, the night continues to go on, and she walks upstairs. She falls asleep on the couch. Then she's suddenly awakened by a phone call from the house phone. So she answers it. It's the parents. It's about 12:05 at night. They say, hey, we're running a little late. We'll be there in about 20 minutes. Hope everything's all right. Have you checked on the boys lately? Anything out of the ordinary? She said, no, I just checked on the boys maybe an hour ago. They're sound asleep in the basement. I was kind of wandering through your house, though, and I wandered into your storage closets. And, I mean, I was really startled by the life-size clown you have down there. It really, really scared me. I've never seen anything like that before. And the mom asked her, what life-size clown? Well, the one in the basement, the one in the storage room. We don't have a life-size clown in our storage room. Then sheer terror falls upon the babysitter's face. She then runs downstairs, checks on the boys, and written on the wall in blood is the words, I don't doink around.
He's actually the scariest. I don't think he's dead, though.
One of them is.
Yeah, that's true. That's amazing, you guys. I'm glad we did this. I apparently took it far too seriously, is what ended up happening.
And I did not.
I was debating between Doink the Clown and Andy Kaufman, and I'm like, which one's going to lean towards I can make up on the top of my head?
Oh, man, I would have loved to hear Andy Kaufman, but so many people don't think he's dead. So
I'll figure out one. Mighty Mouse is in there somewhere.
Nice. Here I come to save the day. I love it. That's amazing. All right. Well, more ghost stories to come in the future. I want to kind of just I want to get into our main topic, because I think this was something we wanted to do since we started talking about doing this podcast. And that was our favorite of the wrestling documentaries. And I've spent some time. This was my excuse to finally get a High Spots subscription, because there is an excellent documentary about Bruiser Brody on there. And I'm very happy about this. Also, I found a couple of really good, or I'm sorry, I only found one, but there are others on there. But on Tubi, T-U-B-I, I think a lot of people use Tubi. Oh, Kitty just wants attention.
Took my spot.
Take a chair. He's gonna fight you for it now?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I have a cat at work, and he does that all the time. And I have to mom cat him all the time to get out of my chair.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, keep going. I'm still here. I'm still listening.
No, you're good. You're good. I got distracted by cuteness. I got a chance to watch a couple of them on Tubi that were on there too, and then finally this. But I think the big one that we were talking about was the fact that David Arquette's documentary "You Can't Kill David Arquette" is finally on Hulu. But we'll kind of roundtable this. Casey, you love the WWE documentaries as well. What are your favorites? What are some of the things that you learned during that time when you would watch these? What are some of the ones you would like to self-promote that you really enjoyed? And even let's start with like WWE produced ones first.
Yeah, I mean, I think I love wrestling documentaries. They're my favorite kinds of documentaries. They're one of the few true crime or ghost documentaries I can watch with Kayla, because she actually likes behind the scenes of wrestling and that stories more than watching professional wrestling, which is fine. I probably agree it's better the behind the scenes, the making of, or someone's journey to becoming a wrestler usually is probably more entertaining and more interesting to a casual fan than professional wrestling itself.
That could be,
yeah. And I mean, one thing we talked about when we kind of started this group was, what's the Vice show?
Mm-hmm.
Dark Side of the Ring.
Dark Side of the Ring was one thing we all kind of bonded over, and that's a great series of documentaries to watch. I think that's high recommend for all three of us. And I mean, I think for WWE documentaries, though, I grew up on those. I grew up on the box sets of WWE DVDs, and really in the height of them doing these. And the rise and fall of ECW might be the best WWE produced documentary ever. I think it's one of the best. It's the one that, for better or worse, brought back ECW to the WWE brand. One Night Stand for the better, everything else past that for the worse. But the documentary itself is very, very good, very entertaining, and gives you that great behind the scenes look on ECW. And I mean, I think the rise and fall of WCW doesn't reach the same heights, but is very interesting in the same respect. I finally watched that actually last night because I had never seen it. Yeah. It's not as good as the ECW one. That's fine, but I think it's just as entertaining. I think it came out at the wrong time to do that, because you couldn't have Sting, Hogan, Nash, Hall, Eric Bischoff. I think this was during they were all in TNA.
Could have been, yeah.
I think so.
I don't know I don't really recall the timing of that one coming out, but that sounds about right. A lot of them were. Well, and I think a lot of people would say like, oh, why they did ECW One Night Stand? Why don't they do WCW One Night Stand? It's like, well, all of them are pretty old at this point. Like, they're not really working anymore. They made their money.
Yeah,
they don't need that payday. The ECW guys did, and they could all still go.
Right.
So I think there's kind of a difference between the two.
And another big difference is the big WCW guys made their way into WWE.
Yeah.
Whereas the ECW guys didn't really break out besides Rob Van Dam. You didn't see Sandman main eventing any pay-per-views in WWE like you would Nash and Hogan and Goldberg.
Well, Tommy Dreamer had a pretty good WWE run as well, but yeah, you're right. RVD is probably, and Rhino.
Yeah.
Were probably the big two that had good WWE runs.
And even Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, and Benoit, but they really made their name outside of ECW as far as their star power. So they were, I think, more so WCW and WWE products than an ECW product, those names. But one of my favorites growing up is the Road Warriors documentary that came out probably around that same time, 05, 06, right around there. Yeah. I think that's an incredible documentary. I mean, that's one of the tag teams I grew up on. Like my dad, when he used to watch old school wrestling, was a big Road Warriors fan. And when I started watching wrestling, I kind of took that on too, as that's my favorite tag team ever, the Road Warriors. And it was long past when they had wrestled when I started watching wrestling. But that's an incredible documentary, seeing their start in Chicago and Minnesota, and seeing their journey through the WWE. And obviously they go through Hawk's ups and downs. And I think this is a few years after Hawk had passed away. It was right before Animal. Again, these documentaries lead to the weird returns of some of these characters.
Right.
Like Heidenreich joining the Road Warriors. That was a thing. Remember that? So that was
I have a friend who likes to, he's not serious about it, but he's like, oh, Heidenreich was better than Hawk ever was. Dude. Like, it's the one thing that I'm like, I'm gonna take this one seriously. Fuck off.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, I still love The Road Warriors. That's one of my favorite documentaries is that one. I haven't watched it probably since I was a kid, but I used to watch that documentary on repeats when I was 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great box set, too. It goes through their entire run, from their early days all the way up through their WWF run, Road Warriors 2000 era.
I think I have that documentary, or I have that box set, I think, still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was one of the few that I was like, I got to get this. Like, the road, and I mean, they were rough. I mean, those guys used to beat the crap out of whoever was in front of them. But they also, I mean, we're still talking about them. It's 2020. Yeah. I mean, they left some kind of impression on myself and many others. I know that we just lost Joe Laurinaitis a few months ago as well, and so Paul Ellering is the healthy market stock market broker or whatever he's doing right now. But Paul Ellering's daughter is actually a pro wrestler now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Rachel Ellering, and she's very impressive. I think she's either dating or married to Chris Hero, who's obviously a hero of the Indies, and I mean, so that lineage is still going. And she's a power lifter, impressive athlete in her own right, everything like that. So, is
Animal's son still in the NFL?
I don't know the answer to that.
I'm surprised he hasn't made the jump over from the NFL over at least trying developmental stuff.
Right.
Seems right. He has a couple ins. I don't know.
He might know a guy.
he might know a guy.
You might know a guy. It always amazes me that John Laurinaitis and Joe Laurinaitis are
brothers.
I
invented the cutter. That's what I'm known for. Great arms, Vince. People power.
I was huge in Japan. Everyone should go to Japan. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a legend in Japan.
Can I get on a quick tangent? And I'll segue it back into documentaries.
Yes.
His rivalry with CM Punk should have been our modern Austin McMahon. They're like, screw that. John Cena is going to go against Laurinaitis. Who cares?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they quickly dropped that, and Cena's got to be the guy.
It's like, no, that Punk is the perfect antithesis of the corporate structure and going up against the power. And it's like, John Cena is the power. He is the corporate guy. Why would you throw him against?
It would have been great to have like Shane Douglas get involved too from John Laurinaitis' original tag team. Was it the Dynamic Dudes?
Yeah.
Is that what it was? I would have loved to see like Shane Douglas come back and try to wrestle Punk.
Yeah, Punk just beat the snot out of him or something. Yeah, there's so many ways you could have gone with that.
Yep.
Yeah,
it would have been awesome.
And to segue back, Punk has a great documentary, Best in the World, too. I think that's a great box set, too. Mm-hmm. Great documentary. I'm glad he got one before he left the company. I think that's always I love these documentaries. I think they should continue to do them. They haven't done these box sets in a while, from what I understand. It's even the network stuff isn't like these hour and a half, 2 hour long documentaries like they were in the mid to late 2000s, like those. I wish they would continue to do some more of these.
They put out some like shorter ones though.
Yeah.
Good. And if one thing, WWE is good at putting out those behind the scenes documentaries. Like their production team is one of the most impressive that I mean, they rival anything you see from like the 30 for 30 and HBO stuff. I mean, they really do. It's impressive. So
I just watched all the Untolds on the network, and I think those were really fun.
Yeah, I loved the one with Orton and Undertaker.
Yeah.
That most recent one. I thought that was fantastic.
It made me look at Randy in a different light.
Yeah, very much so.
Like even I think he starts it off as like, we're just going to go and say whatever we want. Okay, I was an asshole.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he admitted it. He admitted all of it. So that was awesome. Yeah. Andy, what about you? What about your favorite documentaries, WWE wise or otherwise?
Yeah, so I think I'll start with that I really enjoyed. Okay, so I've got this is the place where I can vent this. I can't really vent this anywhere else because it doesn't fit. But despite how I might now feel about Mark Calloway and his maybe political leanings, I really enjoyed the Last Ride documentary. I thought that was a really well put together kind of chronicle of this legendary figure as he neared the end of his career. I had a really good time with that. I also really liked the Monday Night War kind of mini series that's on the WWE network. It's, dives in episode by episode, not necessarily in chronological order, but in kind of order by what the highlights are. I really like those. They feel like peeks behind the curtain. And I, when we were growing up in that time frame, there was this divide between what you got to see and what happened behind the scenes. And now I think it's a lot more, you get a peek behind the curtain more than you ever did before. So kind of going back to that era and, seeing what things were like and how people, the bonds that the wrestlers had with each other, even if on screen they were rivals, just all of that stuff was really interesting to me. Kind of the aspect of how are we going to top this other company was really fascinating. I just really enjoy that Monday Night War documentary. And I mean, it becomes an ego battle too, which is these men who have finally achieved this success, and can they push it further? Can they become more successful? And it becomes with WCW, at least from my perspective, this really wanting to serve yourself and make yourself, your character, bigger than the brand. And you can't do that. The business still has to come first. You still have to be loyal to your company. And that's the thing I think that I like so much about Stone Cold, until he, of course, kind of had that where he got too big and kind of Vince just was like, no, you're done. Well, I'm going to quit. I'm not coming back. That kind of thing. And I think that left a lot of bitterness in both of them that they were able to work out. But, with WCW, everyone's egos got massively inflated that it really took the company down. And it's interesting to watch it on that documentary. I also really like the CM Punk disc. I have a handful of Blu-rays still. I used to have a lot more of wrestling DVDs, but there's still a handful of them that I have that I really enjoy. The CM Punk one is one that I like. I really like the Paul Heyman disc too. Yeah, I think that one is really good. His story is just so interesting, how he was this punk kid wrestling photographer and then became then became this mouthpiece and run his own company, and just Heyman is great.
And the fact that Heyman started at Studio 54 promoting wrestling there, it's like, that's fascinating. And usually you hear these things through the grapevine, and then they just finally put it on a documentary in documentary form. That was something completely new to me. So I really like that one. And then I will take a second to go with my ghost of choice. So I like we'll talk about the dueling documentaries, I guess is the best way to go. So can I pause you on that for a second? Because I think this will segue nicely. I have some qualms with the Monday Night War.
Sure.
And not to say that highly entertaining, loved it from an informational standpoint of what they put out at the time. If you didn't grow up in that era, it's very, very informative. The one qualm I have had with that is because that was like one of the first things they did on the network. And one of the first highly produced things that they did. But it's so we're WWE. We didn't worry. We were going to win.
Right.
It very much feels like an 8-episode jerk-off session.
I get that.
Minus the Cruiserweight episode.
I guess to counterbalance that, since it's so fresh, the rise and fall of WCW, Vince is very humble in that one. He's like, I was like, when they were bringing in Hogan and Hall and Nash, and they showed up, he's like, oh shit,
Right.
Like I was like he was very humble in that, and I give Vince props for that. It's not very often you get to see Vince humble, which is very nice to see. Even at the end of it, he's like, "Yeah, I didn't want to, buy." This is what he said. I don't know if I fully believe this, but he's like, "I bought them out not because it's like, oh, now I win and I rule everything." It's like, no, I bought an asset and I brought the asset to my company.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no,
probably
that's true.
To an extent,
but also, you won.
Yeah.
There's a winning factor in that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've always, they did the episode on Goldberg. They're like, oh, he's the one guy that they actually push. I'm like, are we just going to ignore the fact that Diamond Dallas Page was like a giant star in WCW? Are we going to ignore the fact that, Goldberg was a huge star, or that Sting was a freaking huge star who never touched WWE? There are people that never touched WWE before going there, and it's just like, no, they only made Goldberg. They only made Goldberg.
Yeah, so. It's definitely a history is written by the winner's perspective,
right?
But I still found it entertaining. And then then there's the two that I'll kind of talk about, because one is one really lays it out there. Sorry, and that would be the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, which is wow.
Surprisingly, not on the network.
No.
Oh,
what
really?
a shock! What a shock that it's not on there.
And it's really hard to find the DVD now.
Yep, that is one that I still have, and I'm holding on to forever, because they really let it out, don't they? They're like, this guy was a lot. And that's what the DVD is. It tells about this guy who they worked with and wasn't easy to work with, and let his ego and his idea of what the character should be get ahead of the business. And there's definitely sour grapes there, and it feels like it, because it is just digging this guy, running him through the mud as much as they possibly could. And then years later, they released, I don't remember what it's called, but there are two different ones. One that came out before he passed away, and then one that came out after he passed away. I don't know if the content is the same or not, but I have the one that came out just before he passed away, which was kind of like, okay, all right, which is kind of like I guess them trying to bury the hatchet and rewrite some of the
followed things. Warrior as he was coming back, and he did the 2K commercial and stuff like that.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's been a while since I've watched that one, but it mostly feels like a 3-hour long apology for the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior. But I think they're both good, because he was everybody expected him to be this huge thing, and he really was super popular. What? Not talented. I mean, not really.
Well, people were into his matches, and that's something that counts. Kids, people were on their feet when Warrior was out there. That's something that counts. So
but
Andy, you need to watch what you say. Remember who haunts your house.
I know. Sorry, I've got Cookie Crisp up there, so we're good. I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I still think both of those documentaries are really fascinating, even if my appreciation of that character might not be super high, or of that man for that matter, because he's not great. So
that's where I always land is I was entertained by both, but I'm not. As a man, Jim Hellwig was not somebody that I want to stand behind.
Isn't it crazy that he's now kind of the face of that era, that they've kind of transitioned Hogan out of that and put Warrior there instead? I'm like, are you just swapping apples for oranges and not changing anything?
And neither is ripe, though.
Yeah.
So.
Shouldn't we just really celebrate the one who deserves it? We just should celebrate Macho Man. We should celebrate Andre the Giant.
I was going to say Rowdy Piper, maybe?
Piper too, yeah.
I mean, Piper used to get paid in 8 balls of cocaine at indie events, but nobody else knows that, which is awesome,
Right?
which is like a big part of Ric Flair's book, is how he got Flair got paid like $4,000 to do an appearance, and he got a fishbowl of, and Piper got a fishbowl of cocaine. But yes, I go back and forth on that. Like, it almost felt like here's a money grab of like, or more of an explanation of why we don't do anything with Warrior anymore.
Yeah.
And now here's us trying to cash in on his likeness again,
Right.
which is smart from a business point of view. It's just kind of a dick move.
Yeah.
On all ends.
Like, I get the bearing the hatchet, and I really appreciate that they're trying to do that with most of the people that they've, screwed one way or the other have screwed over or been screwed over by in the past. I do like that Vince he is first and foremost a businessman,
right,
and knows how to make the money when you need to make the money. I mean, look at even the smaller stuff, like bringing in like Bischoff, the face of WWE, and bringing back Ultimate Warrior, even now having Punk appear on the Fox whatever thing he was on, I don't remember.
But he's employed by Fox.
Yeah,
it's true.
Still, it's on a WWE show. WWE's name is on it. They're playing his entrance music. Yeah, so I think it's cool that at least Vince is a smart enough businessman, even if he's maybe not the nicest or best dude, that he can at least know when to put the money. I want to say it's probably put the money first, but also the fans too. I think Vince does had the fans in mind for a lot of things. Mm-hmm. But can we talk about a couple documentaries that don't put Vince in a great light from the late 90s?
Yeah.
Which one are we talking? Beyond the Ring or
Beyond the Mats and the Hitman.
Wrestling with Shadows.
Wrestling with Shadows.
Shadows. Yes. That is for free on YouTube right now. I own 4.
I think Beyond the Mats on Netflix too. If
it was, it might still be there. I own 4 VHS tapes to this day that I can't get rid of. 3 of them are the original Star Wars, and 1 of them is Beyond the Mat.
Nice.
So that's my personality right there. But yes, I want to hear Casey. Which one did you want to talk about?
Oh, I want to talk about both. I mean, I love both. I think Beyond the Mat might be my favorite. I mean, Rise and Fall of ECW might be my favorite WWE produced, but Beyond the Mat is maybe my favorite wrestling documentary. It's, again, especially for the time when that came out, that was kind of a huge documentary. And I mean, even as an entertainment style movie, it's a very quotable movie too. I think I still quote the Vince meeting Draws scene all the time.
He's gotta puke.
He's gotta puke. So good. It's like, why does Vince think that's hilarious, and why is that someone's gimmick?
Well, and Mick Foley claims that he doesn't think that Vince would have done that had the cameras not been there. And
the whole he's gonna puke.
Yeah. He said that if it was just a meeting between the two, they wouldn't have even discussed that. But now that the camera's on Vince, he wants that little bit of controversy, and he threw that in there. Which I don't blame him, but that's something that Mick Foley always claims, is he believes that Vince McMahon would not have tried to make Darren Drozdov, this NFL recruit, puke on the spot right on the field. So, that also follows Terry Funk's last match,
his first last match.
Which kind of culminated in this big ECW WWE big mashup, where Bret Hart wrestled Terry Funk for the WWF title.
Yeah.
But yeah. What are you guys' thoughts on Beyond the Mat?
I saw that in theaters. Like that's
What?
like I remember when that came out and it played at the theater. I was in Plano, Texas at the time. I got a cat everywhere. I just got to deal with it. Lived in Plano, Texas, was going to college my first go round, and they played it at the theater there that we would go to all the time, and saw that one in theaters and was like, yeah, man, it can be pretty shady, but man, behind the scenes, it's cool to see that. And yeah, just one that I don't think I've seen it since, but I remember really enjoying it and really, kind of being like, wow, this is what wrestling is like. And then the Bret Hart one, the Wrestling with the Shadows. Kiki likes it too.
He likes it, yeah.
Yeah, she's a big fan. She wants to know what the excellence of execution is really like and what that whole
she thinks Bret screwed Bret too.
Bret screwed Bret. That's what happened. I think that one is a really interesting documentary that, of course, all documentaries kind of take a particular perspective. And I think it's nice to, with how much being a wrestling fan, we saw Vince McMahon's perspective. Bret screwed Bret, blah, 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 but getting to see what it was like on the other end of things and what Bret was trying to do and, how he wanted to leave the organization and just wasn't willing to go the way that Vince wanted him to. It's hard to really take either side, to be honest with you. You can kind of see both perspectives, but it's a business. You want to play the game, and they could have come to a better agreement. I think they just weren't willing to because both were pretty stubborn, bullheaded men. But I think
they were both in on it. Andy, come on,
it's a fake. It's a fake. The screw job.
It was a work.
Total work.
I still think it was a work.
Yeah, it might be. It might very well be.
Okay, can we go off on that tangent for a little bit? Because I think this documentary adds more fuel to that conspiracy fire.
Yep.
Because it just so happens they're shooting a Bret Hart documentary during the Montreal screw job, right as Bret is leaving the company and heading to WCW. It's like all these things are lining up in place. I don't know if I fully believe it, but I think there is enough presented that it could be like they both knew what was going on, what was going to happen, how it benefited both, because it does benefit both immensely. Makes Mr. McMahon the most dastardly human on earth. Makes Shawn Michaels a piece of shit. Well, he already was, but makes him more of a piece of shit at the time. And makes Bret look like the biggest baby face in the world as he's heading off into a new company and gets to do the WCW in a WWF ring.
So, I mean, that wasn't like hidden footage of him doing that either, doing the WCW.
He did that on the pay-per-view, right?
Right. And that all aired. That's my, and Scott Hall even added to it for me.
Yeah.
Is that there were so many camera switches that were going on. Like, it was almost like they knew what was going on, or somebody back there knew what was going on, but nobody's talked. There's probably 4 people who know what actually happened. Now, I could be the dumbass who believes this is all a work because wrestling tends to do that. But and I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong. But I've always been of the mindset for a long time, and that was very much fueled by the fact that Wrestling with Shadows was shot at the exact same time. That was always my belief, is that this was a work given all these circumstances. But again, they could just be circumstances. Because I don't believe in ghosts.
A ghost screwed Bret.
Yeah. You had mentioned the Dark Side of the Ring series as well. Do you guys have you gotten a chance to watch both seasons?
Not all of it. I think there are some episodes I haven't watched yet.
Okay. Did we all catch the Benoit episode?
Yes. Well, that was a 2-parter, right?
Yeah. I don't necessarily like to talk about Benoit much, but that was a very well produced and a lot of revelation in that one too.
Yeah.
And then since we're talking about Brett, the last episode of the second season was about Owen and everything that went down with that. And we're talking about not putting Vince McMahon in a good light.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was scathing for him.
Right.
But then there's the episodes in the first season. There's one on the unfortunate passing of Bruiser Brody. If anybody ever gets a chance, I would really recommend. There's a documentary on High Spots about Bruiser Brody that is so well done, and it's actually narrated by Bruiser Brody's late wife. So it's very, very cool, and it's fun to like. Andy, I don't know if you were as afraid of Stan Hansen as I was.
Sure, yeah.
But Stan Hansen makes many appearances, and it's gentle Grandpa Stan Hansen throughout the whole thing. I watched this man break people's faces with his bicep, and he's just, oh man, me and Brody, we'd go out to Japan, and we'd just have a good time, you know. Gentle Grandpa Stan. It's just,
sure.
Yeah, having some fun. Were there other ones? I don't know. Did we really touch on Beyond the Mat as much as we could? I mean, there's so much in that one.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Andy.
Oh, I was just to say there's a bunch of stories that are covered in there. It's nice focus on Mick Foley, Terry Funk, the everything with Draws. They talk. I think they also dive a little bit into Jake the Snake, that's another really good documentary. Jake the Snake has one about his recovery and kind of the assistance of Diamond Dallas Page to help get his life back on track. That's a really, really good documentary as well. I can't remember the name of it right now, but
The Resurrection of Jake
the Resurrection of Jake the Snake. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, it's really good, really, really good. So, I think Beyond the Mat is at a time when they weren't pulling back the curtain. It was really nice to kind of see where they were willing to go.
And it was, just speaking of it being the first of its kind, I still think it holds up as being one of the best of its kind. With that behind the scenes look at it, I think it was very well put together. The stories were all there. Very enjoyable. I really enjoyed that one. Casey, did you have more to say on Beyond the Mat?
No, I was ready to throw out some more.
What else did you have?
I think the Edge WWE documentary is really great. You Think You Know Me.
That one is good.
Is a really good documentary on Edge and his upbringing. I'm waiting on the Christian one. I've been waiting on that. So let's get it. Let's get it out there.
The follow-up, I don't know if it's a WWE 24 episode, possibly, or a WWE, one of their produced shows. They did a follow-up of Edge's return to the Royal Rumble last year. It's called The Second Mountain or something like that. Very touching. I would highly recommend that one as well. Probably might be more touching than even You Think You Know Me.
Good. I'll have to check that out. I've been going back through some of the WWE Network documentaries lately. And
I would really recommend that one. That was one of my favorite, I think, in the last few years that they put out. Because I sat down and watched that whole thing. And it was also Edge is just the sweetest person. It's hard not to get behind him and be a fan of him. And he's getting himself into immaculate shape, but he has his one cheat day and they follow him to the donut shop. And the donut shop is reserved donuts for Edge because he comes in every Sunday. It's really funny. And apparently just in the little things, Edge has this he has this huge sweet tooth. He had found out that on something, there was a clip, but he had found out he was going to win the Rumble this last week. And he was okay. But apparently he got even more excited when he saw the catering table because they had this giant stack of cookies. And he went to the bag, ruffled a bunch of them into the bag. It was just a kid. He's oh my God, free cookies. I want to talk about Resurrection of Jake the Snake. Have all three of us watched that?
Mm-hmm.
That is, I think, might be the most well-produced of any of the outside WWE documentaries. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on this.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's really deep dive, really well put together. A look at this man who is, this is cliche, but wrestling with demons. Like, just that's what his life has kind of become, and struggles with addiction and alcoholism and aging. Like, I mean, that's one of the struggles that he has to go through too, is his own mortality, but also his place in this business that doesn't stop. Like, it doesn't, just because you earned a name for yourself at one point in time, the business keeps going, and you still have to, if you want to be a part of it, you've got to do what you can to remain relevant. And at the time that this documentary was made, he was damaged and broken and not really able to do anything, and it was sad to see. And I think over the course of the documentary, it's a resurrection of Jake the Snake Roberts. So yeah,
it's good to see that he is back in the business too, in a managing role over at AEW. And he has such a good pairing with I keep wanting to call him Lance Hoyt, but the Murder Hawk Monster. Those two, such great characters together. And Jake came out that first night and cut a promo on Cody that was 45 seconds long, maybe less. And he again proved that he is one of the top professionals when it comes to cutting a promo. I remember he came out and cut that promo. I was like, he's still the best. He's still the best at it. Like, he still had me like at the edge of my seat. He barely said anything. Still the best. So
another person they could swap out for Ultimate Warrior.
Oh yeah. They could.
Right?
But,
Yep.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Have they ever done a DDP documentary?
They did.
They did?
They did. I have not watched it, but it is on the network. I've passed by it a couple of times. There were a couple of like the promotional ones, like the WCCW and the AWA ones that I've been trying to get out of the way because I just realized I had never watched them. And they're really interesting stories, especially the AWA one, being that it's semi-local, and like the AWA used to wrestle in Mitchell. And that's, I really wanted to get those things not out of the way, but I wanted to watch those. And then, the triumph and tragedy of the Von Erich family and everything like that. And, but yes, to answer your question, there is a DDP one.
Okay. I will have to check that out. That seems like a guy just primed for a great documentary.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And everything that he's done, like, I don't know if you guys had heard the story, but Jake had, when the initial quarantine started, Jake was in a hotel room for a couple of days before he went home, and then he had to quarantine in the hotel room. Yeah. So, Jake called Dallas and was like, kind of like, I don't know what to do here. I'm kind of freaking out. Yeah. Dallas got on a plane and stayed with him in the hotel. So, like, it goes beyond the documentary, and it seems genuine that these two have this amazing friendship, and then on top of that, Diamond Dallas Page and Jake each have a very big stake in Jake staying sober. So that's really cool to see. Which, more of the touching. I know how we started with Beyond the Mat, but that was a really touching moment on that. And I got a chance. Did you guys get a chance to watch You Can't Kill David Arquette?
I haven't yet.
Charlie?
Not yet.
It made my top 10 movies of the year. I loved this documentary. Speaking of DDP.
Yeah, right. That was like, how can you not love the person David Arquette after watching that? Like, he is just such a jovial human being, struggles with his own mental health, and that's a big part of what we do here. But oh man, I thought I was a fan of David Arquette's indie run that he just did before. Now I'm over the moon. I want him to wrestle until the day he dies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just finished the WCW one, and that ends with, the final days of WCW. What killed it? And they're pretty scathing on David Arquette was one of those things. I'm like, did you guys watch any of the other product you were putting out around that time? It's not David Arquette's fault.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, that might have been the final nail, but it was this very small nail at that. So.
And can you blame Arquette, who grew up a wrestling fan and was at events before he ever appeared as the David Arquette wrestling character before Ready to Rumble? Can you blame him for them saying, we're putting the belt on you and you're going to wrestle with DDP and Jeff Jarrett? It's like, okay, I get to be in the ring with some of the best in the world. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Can you blame him for wanting to do that and live a literally lifelong dream, a childhood dream? Yeah.
And don't blame him. Somebody has to write that shit. So it's not his fault.
Who are you trying to blame, bro?
Yeah.
Who are you trying to blame, bro?
He's trying to blame, bro.
Who are you trying to blame, bro?
Put the strap on you, bro.
Yeah. We're going to put the strap on you, bro. It's fine.
And I mean, he even says this wasn't something like he did not want to do it either at first.
Right.
He's like, no, I'm not a wrestler. I can't be doing this. And that they convinced him. It wasn't something he pitched to them or wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So, and his journey is incredible.
Yeah. And I'll be the first one to admit that, like, I was that fan, like, screw David Arquette. He killed WCW. He tried to kill the business. And I was one of those fans. And then he made his indie run. And, it was obvious to me before the documentary came out that, like, he wanted to rectify that. Like, he wanted to show a little bit of respect to the sport. And then he, the whole situation happened with him and Nick Gage at GCW. I think it was GCW where he got his neck or his artery punctured. And that was like the scariest thing. I remember talking to Nick Dinsmore about that. And like Nick was furious because at the time there was like he was one of the ones trying to get him into Sioux Falls, or one of the people trying to get David Arquette to come and wrestle. And then he hurt his neck and he couldn't take much more as far as bookings. And then he was going to stop after the documentary was shot. But like there were some scary moments. And then it has this one, I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but probably one of the most like storybook endings to a documentary you'll ever see is in this documentary. Just him and like how they started it and how they ended it. Like that rounding out was so good. So good.
And I mean, even if you're not a wrestling fan, David Arquette from film. Like this is a great like him trying to prove himself in that sphere as well, because he feels that his stuff in WCW and doing Ready to Rumble and all the stuff in the wrestling world really hindered his movie career after that, where he was only in horror movies, B movies, stuff like that. He wasn't taken as a serious actor. Mm-hmm. And I think this is definitely helping to revitalize that too. I would love to see Arquette do more stuff. I mean, he's obviously coming back in Scream, which made his film career. Right. And I do like to see. I would like to see more of David Arquette appear in other things too. I think this documentary has proven that he's not just the crazy Arquette brother that did wrestling.
On a much funnier note with David Arquette, though, is that he was doing an indie show. This didn't make the documentary, but somebody has like film of it on their phone. I'll never it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. So the fan is heckling David Arquette as he's wrestling. He's on the outside and he's like, just fuck you, David Arquette. Get the fuck out of the business. Oh, you're just here for money. David Arquette turns to him, looks straight at the guy who said that, and he goes, I have friends' money, bitch. And got back in. Yep, that works. All right. Well, let's start winding this down here for us, and let's make sure that we get our final segment in. We'll talk more about documentaries as episodes come to pass, but let's do a quick round of Build Your Bowl. Who wants to tell what movie we selected to cast with wrestlers today?
I thought we were doing this next week.
I'm not prepared, Charlie. I'm not prepared.
Then we'll
Not
skip
prepared.
it and we'll round it out here today.
Should we reveal what movie we're doing though? I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't know if we have any plans, but the week of WrestleMania, I think we're gonna have some fun stuff planned for, or the before WrestleMania, right, leading up to it. I think we'll have some fun stuff. But next time we come on, we'll be casting the movie. I'll give you guys a drum roll. Who wants to tell it? Who?
Willy Wonka.
And the Chocolate Factory.
Willy Wonka. I'm gonna do the Tim Burton brand. Willy Wonka. Willy Wonka. I'm
Most
not
famous chocolatier.
I'm not
I think that's what it is.
That movie. That was a fever dream. All right, well, let's wrap it up. Again, NAMI.org. If any of you are struggling, watch some wrestling documentaries, interact with us. Make sure to follow Backlot 605 for all of your movie talking, and also Fat Dude Digs Flicks for my friends Casey and Andy. Make sure to check out their podcast. If you have any inkling to book me, because of my job, I will be vaccinated soon, so I can make it to your shows if you would like. My name is Charlie Eccles. I am a wrestling ring announcer and commentator. I would love to come to your promotion. Email me at wrestlingvoicecharlie@gmail.com. Until next time, enjoy the month. I don't want to say enjoy your burrito because that's something from a different podcast, but it is the Nerdist podcast.
Someone's stealing our gimmick.
I mean, sure.
We stole somebody else's gimmick. That's never happened.
Never. Enjoy some Mexican food. Enjoy your wrestling, and we will see you next month on Burritos and Bodyslams.
We'll see you next month. How are you?
Wait, where's the thumb?